You're listening to The Deal with D and J. I'm the co-host, Jacob Pearl. Alongside me, wearing kind of a nice little country farmhand vibe. He's going, if you feel it, chase it. He's not Glenn Powell, folks. He is actually your second co-host, DJ McCaffrey. DJ, how are we doing on this fine evening slash day
Um,
to those listening? How are we feeling in general?
Jacob, I was gonna say before we got on here that it was still daylight outside, but since the our procrastination, my procrastination, it is now dark outside. So I was gonna give us some props for starting early, but it has since been taken away
Yeah,
as quick as it came in.
I was gonna say we are our nocturnal beings recording late, but guess what? It's football season. We're willing to make the sacrifices.
For the
Everything
fans.
what's needed for the dealers out there. And we're kind of wrapping up the final touches of our college football preview here. And then later in this episode, you're going to get our bona fide lock it in, put the house on. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But lock it in our predictions for the top 12 teams to make it to the college football playoff. We're going to give you our 1 through 12. We're going to do a mini kind of how we see the bracket playing out in our heads. And we'll crown a national champion by the end of this episode, who we like the best to win this and this year's first ever 12-team college football playoff. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. DJ, before we dive into the group of five, give me your favorite bit of why you like the 12-team college football playoff going into this season.
I think there becomes I think there becomes this talking point among people in the conferences and what they deserve on a greater scale than what we saw them before. Because I think in the 14 playoff, though there was a lot of controversy, there were it didn't allow for other conferences to really have a shot, right? How often did we see a Pac-12 team in the playoff? How often did we see a Big 12 team in the playoff versus how often we saw either a Big 10 team or an SEC team, more dominantly, and then, Clemson was in there every year for a while. Ohio State's been in a lot of them. Michigan the last couple years. It's really been a two conference race, right? Has there been much upset in this? Do we feel like there's an underdog when we go to the 14 playoff? Ohio State in year one was a big underdog, right? That's the only one that I feel has a real good story behind it. I believe Alabama has one as a 4 seed, but is Alabama ever really a 4 seed, at least in the Nick Saban era? No. So I think this allows for more conversation about who deserves it in their conference. And now that these conference champions get a bye, now four people plus one group of five get get this bye. And then this whole conversation on a greater scale is who deserves to be in. Your wins at this point really matter. So I just like the avenues you can take in talking about it. We have been talking about, oh, there's definitely going to be three SEC teams. There's definitely going to be three Big Ten teams, and then that's four of the seven available spots outside of the conference champs in your group of five winner. So that if our thing stands right, now you've got three other conferences that have bids for excuse my math real quick, but at that point it's five, eight. What is that? Four more spots that we have. Three other conferences to go through, if not another group of five team. So it's stretch, but not like it's impossible, especially with one automatic bid. One's got to be up there. So I think it's interesting. It allows again for different talking points, and I think it's just overall just very exciting, especially with this transfer portal, and the paying the players. I mean, it seems like the field is really starting to even itself out. whether it's the Titans coming down to a level or the mid-tier teams making a jump up. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but well, we're tossed in the SEC right now with Nick Saban being gone. All hell is breaking loose. So,
Yeah, I like that point, but I think for the first time in a long time, I feel like this season brings a lot of parity. I feel like you couldn't, we're talking about the early, probably late 2010s, early 2021, where it didn't feel like there was a lot of parity. It was a lot of Georgia, a lot of Bama, Ohio State, Clemson was basically the top four teams year in, year out. Then we finally got a
mhm,
fresh face with Cincinnati got in there with Desmond Ritter and company. TCU made it. So now with 12 teams, we're going to have upsets, which I think is always fun in college football. A home team is going to lose to when a 10 seed plays them on the road, right? Then you have the bowl games. Those can lead to upsets. Ultimately, I think the bracket will also kind of shake out the way it's supposed to. Eventually, the better teams will end up winning, but
mhm,
it's year one. That's why I think that. I think in year two and year three, I think there's some real parity, like there is in college basketball, where it's any given Saturday, every given day, right? So
mhm.
without further ado, DJ, let's talk a little bit about some of these group of five teams. Let's each talk about three teams that kind of entice us as either a favorite or a dark horse to make the college football playoff. And then we'll reveal who our group of five winner is in our CFP prediction. How about that, DJ? Does that work for you?
Well, I think that sounds great, buddy.
DJ, I'm going to kind of kick it off here, and I'm going to take probably a team that you're probably thinking the same thing. I think they're the most iconic group of five team in the country. They got iconic helmets, iconic play calls, and an iconic field. I'm talking about the Boise State Broncos. I think they're a classic case of a group of five that can come in and shake up the landscape coming into the CFP era, right? Obviously, they got a huge transfer in from a USC quarterback, former USC quarterback Malachi Nelson, right? But he's currently scheduled to be behind Maddox Madsen again. Two talented quarterbacks in that room. Ashton Janti, a great star running back. PFF has had him rated at a 94.9 last season and a 91.6 receiving grade as he nearly gathered 2,000 yards from scrimmage in
Oh,
last year, right?
holy
Now,
goodness.
yeah, this is a team. They were 8-6 last year, right? They were, I think, a top five group of five team, right? Obviously, tough schedules lead the way for the Boise State Broncos just because the Mountain West does what we both predict the Big Ten will do, which is it could cannibalize itself, right? Boise
Mhm.
State could run rampant, but then out of nowhere, they're losing to the Nevada Wolfpack, right? You're looking at
Right.
Air Force can cause noise. Colorado State, we're predicting to cause some noise, right? And you're still looking
Mhm.
at, Utah State and Wyoming as people that can really cause a ruckus. We're going to get a real great sense of this team because they got to go on the road to play current number three Oregon, right? But obviously, that's a buy. Oregon's buying the game, but that's a tough team to go play. And we get
Right.
another chance at a former Power Five school with Washington State coming to Boise State. So, and Oregon State's coming to Boise State as well. So there's great opportunity for Boise State this year playing three former Pac 12 teams to make a statement with the offense that they have. I think the defense will kind of figure itself out in the high rate of the Mountain West. But I like Boise State as kind of a favorite out of the group of fives to make the CFP for the first time.
Yeah, I see that there's a lot of hype, or a lot to go on about with Boise State. They're definitely one of those teams that I look at in the past. Everybody knows the legendary game against Oklahoma. I believe the Fiesta Bowl,
It
if I'm
was
not. Yeah.
Statue of
How can I
Liberty.
forget that amazing call? Um, but after last year, what did you say that their record was last year?
They were 8-6 last year.
So That's what they played 14 games
Probably a conference championship and a bowl game.
and a bowl game. You're right. Um, so they're definitely a team that I wish was, or with a lot of these group of five teams, that they were just more consistent. They had a good run there in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Um, but I do agree that they're a team that has added some depth. Um, excuse me. That has added some depth. They look good going into this year. Um, and they're just a team that I hope does well, right? I don't think that they are a team that people you could just
Sorry about that. I thought I was going to be fine, but I wasn't.
yeah, the boy struggling.
I
All
was
right, let me
struggling.
just Spencer Danielson. Interesting.
All
Did
right.
they did they lose their bowl game?
Boise State?
Yeah.
I think so.
Let's see. Uh, yes, because they lost to UCLA. They really messed up my thing. I picked Boise State to upset them. Yeah, Jacob. So with Boise State in their record last year, I feel like that there is room for improvement, and they're going to need to if they want to make a case to one make it to the top of the group of five, right? To get that bid in, and also if they want an outlier spot, which I mean, you looked at me sideways earlier, but could very well be possible with some of these conferences clashing into each other. Um, but with their head coach, I think it's Spencer Danielson. They fired their coach in the season last year. He went 3-1 to end the year, right? So lost to UCLA in the bowl game. So there's a lot of upside, like you said, Malachi Nelson, right? Um, is now the backup, which was a little shocking for a lot of us as he bounced around a couple places, expecting to play, right? But you know, if he's going to be your backup, right? We know the talent that he has, but now that that's coming off the bench and has the potential for next year as well, I think there's a lot of upside for Boise State to do well. To move to my team or one of my teams that I'm excited for, which was kind of the avenue that I expected you to take with the first pick. But Appalachian State, I think, really is America's sweetheart when it comes to these big games. Boone, North Carolina goes wild on Saturdays, and they have for the last couple years been one of the best teams in the group of five, right? Came in second in the SBC East behind James Madison's unbelievable run last year. But I expect James Madison to take a step back as they lost their head coach. Um, and I expect Appalachian State to make a leap. I think that they have a very interesting schedule coming into this year. They play a pretty decent and manageable schedule from what I see here. The almost the guaranteed loss that I see would be at Clemson week 2, right? But all of these other games, again, you're talking group of five. I think they could get past a majority of these teams. Maybe you circle Liberty. Liberty tends to put up a good fight in the group of five. James Madison maybe I'm wrong about them this year, right? You got to travel to Coastal Carolina, which has proven to be a tough place to play, right? Even if it is on a Thursday night. But App State is going to get a lot of attention because I think they're one of the more popular group of five schools. I think Boone would absolutely blow up if they made a playoff. And I just think going into this season that, especially for group of five teams, and even more than that, teams at the top of the group of five conference and have been in past years, they are going to take a next level step in a talent, their play calling, and things like that. And I think App State will lead the way um, to try to bully their way into a playoff spot.
Love it, DJ. I love everything you talked about. I love Joey Aguilar, very senior led team. He's got great experience. I think obviously we both kind of expect James Madison to take that step back. I love App State to kind of make some noise in that conversation. I got another classic kind of uprising group of five, especially in the last couple years. Before I give this is my second team before I give my like official favorite on the third team, but the Liberty Flames are
Mm.
a team that has been constantly in the mix. Even after Hugh Freeze left, they are still just churning away up there in Virginia with the Liberty Flames. Last year, they were 13-1. All right. Again,
Took a trip to what bowl game did they go to? Because they played USC last year.
yeah, they played I believe it was the forget what bowl, but they did play them. Now, granted, you know, Liberty, I think they have as good as a chance as anybody else given the conference they're in. They're in the American now,
Mm-hmm.
with the likes of, UTSA and Memphis, and now Army's in there and USF, right? Again, they have Caden Salter back again for the quarterback, and he's, a great a great rusher on both sides of the ball, right? 1,000 yards rushing last season, 500 of it came after contact as well. Has a great arm and according to PFF, the fourth highest big time throw percentage out there with a great running back to complement him. Right, we're looking at a team with like incredible run game with a quarterback who can sling it. In college football, that is a recipe for winning, and they have a solid defense as well. And Liberty's schedule has always been incredibly favorable to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Given that, for a while they were on the independent scene, so they had to kind of, fend for themselves a little bit in terms of, where they were going and how they were balancing it. But, Liberty, I think, is one of those teams with a classic case of, pardon me, they're in Conference USA, not the American, mixed up. But again, it's the same kind of opportunities they have here, right? While the schedule's not super strong, this gives them an opportunity to really show off against other group of fives that they are better. App State is on the schedule. UTEP's on the schedule. UMass is on the schedule, right? And we're looking at, Liberty to kind of come in and take care of business with this schedule. The schedule's not incredibly strong, but if they're winning by large margins, that kind of sets up a recipe for the committee to be like, maybe they're better than we think they are. But again, last year's kind of performance in the bowl game kind of left not a great taste, but they were the best group of five team last year. But I like the Liberty Flames as my number two team in the group of fives.
Is this my third school?
Second.
Second school? My second school, I am going to go with Coastal Carolina. They're not as dominant of a team as they were in 2021, 2020, or really 2022 for that matter. Um, but 8-5 under a brand new head coach after having a coach that went, I don't know, 22-3. So that's 31-7 over 3 years, turning around, flipping its program on its side, and still pulling out an 8-5 while beating App State and a couple other monsters in the Group of Five conference. I believe Marshall was another one. They held up well against Texas State. and beat a very scrappy San Jose State team in their bowl game in the Hawaii Bowl, I think Coastal Carolina is in a good spot to improve on what they did last year and make a leap towards, once again, the top like they had been in the past. So I don't have much on Coastal Carolina. They're a big Thursday night team, and I don't know. I need to start getting into the Thursday night football, especially this year. Like these Thursday night football games, Friday night football games are going to become so important in keeping an eye towards the end of the year. But Coastal Carolina is a team that I look at historically. Like we have App State, like we have Boise State, and historically, I mean they've only been in the FBS, Jacob, since 2017, right? And they were ranked rather high in the 2020 and the 2021 season, going 11-2 and 11-1 in those two seasons, right? Um, I believe the AP poll, the 2021, it says here their highest rank was 14th in the AP poll. In 2020, they got as high as number 12 in the college football playoff poll. So again, that was under Jamie Chadwell, who left for Liberty, who is now dominating, right? So he's a bona fide winner. But this team, again, for having flipped on its side, having to replace key players, key positions on the coaching staff, come back. They've got an epic helmet. They've got an epic feel too, just like Boise State does. They don't quite have the historical presence that Boise State does, or really even App State, but a team that I would watch out for to make a big step back. Those young guys coming from Jamie Chadwell and his staff and his recruiting. Um, I expect them to take a leap. I don't know if it's going to be a leap as big as the top of the group of fives, but could they teeter towards the top? I believe and I'm confident that they can. They have the ability to. So it comes down to execution, how well they train in the offseason, and the product that we see moving forward.
Love it, DJ. And my third team, I think this is my favorite team. I think that will make the CFP as the group of five winner. I like the UTSA Roadrunners to
Okay.
make they won the American last year. Jeff Traylor in his fifth year has only won at UTSA. He's shaken up UTSA in its core. I love what they're doing over there. Last year was a breakout year for them, honestly. And the American is competitive this year, right? We're looking at UTSA, Memphis, Tulane, and even USF all potentially vying with the teams we have mentioned for this one spot,
Hmm.
right? Again, I like the Roadrunners. I think they have a great thing going as well. All right. Now they're losing a long time starting quarterback from Frank Harris from the previous year. But Owen McCown looked great in the blowout win against Marshall, 22 for 31, 251, right? And the Roadrunners are returning 11 people back on, defense. All right. And improving that unit again. You're looking at Nick Booker Brown and Jamori Robinson. And again, UTSA was aggressive in the transfer portal, getting guys from New Mexico and Louisiana Tech, as well as a former LSU corner, Denver Harris. Again, I think this is a team where it's so interesting where a team like UTSA can grow from because they were aggressive in the transfer portal and they're a group of five school where we don't really see that come up too often. I like what Jeff Traylor's doing at UTSA. They won the conference last year. I believe they finished the year, I believe 9-4 last year, I want to say. But I like where UTSA is going. I like the program in of itself. I love the nickname, the Roadrunners. I love the orange and the blue and the silver down in San Antonio. I don't sleep on the Roadrunners. I think they are a sneaky, sneaky favorite, and personally, my favorite to make the college football playoff as the Group of Five winner.
Yeah, was it last year or 2 years ago that they made that very epic run? Um, just making all types of noise, just came in kind of like a bat out of hell.
Kind of, I think it was last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah,
I thought it was the year before, but I could be sorely mistaken. Is Are there teams still in the pack? Did Oregon State not join a conference?
they're technically the Pac-12 still.
And we just say Power Four conference? Oh my God. Okay, Jacob. So with my final team here in the group of five, I don't necessarily make expect them to make it, but I expect them to make great improvements um, coming into this season, and that's going to be the Colorado State Rams. Right? Last year did not go as planned. 5-7 in Jay Norvell's second season over there. But I think one thing I could, and hopefully everybody else takes away from it, is that they are improving over the last 2 years with Mr. Norvell as their head coach. 3-9 in their first season, 5-7 in the second season. I'm not expecting them to make a leap to 9-3 or 10-2, right? But I believe it's week 2, right? That they host the Colorado Buffaloes. Is that week 2? Would I be correct in that statement?
No, because
No.
Colorado plays Nebraska week 2.
So week 3.
Yeah,
So in week 3, Colorado State hosts Colorado. Took them, how many overtimes did they go to last year?
2.
Well, yeah. So double overtime in an epic game with a ton of hype behind Colorado coming in. And now they've got an opportunity nice and early to set a tone for the rest of their season, like last year, right? They set a tone for improvement last year. That's what I'm going to take away from the Colorado State Colorado game last year. Is they had a lot of heart, they had a lot of fight, right? Inevitably came short, but now they've got an opportunity to set the tone another again this year, nice and early against another team, against the same team that still has a lot of hype coming in, and prove themselves, make a bigger leap. Maybe they could go 8-4. Maybe they go 7-5. A bowl game is not a far stretch for this group, and I think it should be an expectation at the minimum that they make a bowl game with the improvements that I've seen.
love it, DJ. DJ, let's this. If we had a sponsor, this is where we would insert said sponsor for a little break here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a sponsor out there, me and DJ are always open. We have spots in the show for you. Okay.
I like hats.
Yeah, love them.
Right,
Love
I'm
hats.
down for a hat.
Listen, let's go ahead. Now
Hold on,
that we
give me
took our
three
little
seconds. I
break,
think something's burning.
give you a couple quick hitters here in the middle of the show here, right?
All right.
Give you a little break from talking about all these teams. I want to just off the dome here, give me your Heisman winner for this upcoming college football season.
Ooh, my Heisman winner, um, Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers,
I think if you're right off the top of the dome, I don't have to think about it. I think Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers wins it. Plain and simple. I think he's the most experienced quarterback. Excuse me, coming back into the season of all the teams. Um, I think he's got the playoff experience. Right. He understands what's riding on this season. I mean, you beat Nick Saban last year at home, right? So you got a small taste of SEC play. They came up short in the playoffs against Washington, but I mean now you've got a different level of experience than most of these guys returning do, and I just think the talent's there. Um, I expect him to do very well this year. And if he does what I think that they could do this year in the SEC, I don't see why they couldn't why he shouldn't win the Heisman. I
Now,
really don't know I don't even know who's close. Really.
yeah, DJ, I'm good. For me, my Heisman winner, it's tough to go with.
Off the top, just first name.
I'm thinking Dylan Gabriel from Oregon's gonna end up being the Heisman winner. With Oregon being in the
Ooh.
Big Ten, that
Wow.
high-powered offense, scoring a ton of points, right? I think that for me is, who I think will eventually, like, I like him the best. I think he has the best options, right? I wouldn't find it hard to believe him winning, right? I was in between him and Jalen Milroe because I really liked Milroe at the end of the year, but Kalen DeBoer is
Hmm.
too big of a question mark, and Dan Lanning almost had Bo Nix as a Heisman candidate, and Bo Nix was slinging that thing, and he ended up being a top 15 draft pick. So I like Dylan Gabriel to kind of. I think he's
Called that
current.
one, by the way.
Uh,
Insert clip with DJ
yeah,
being right, calling that.
not going to, but um, I like the way Dan Lanning's program is heading, and I think if Oregon's going to be aggressive in the Big Ten, which they're going to have to be with the likes of Ohio State and all them, I like Dylan Gabriel having some Heisman moments with some big throws and some big drives to win games for the Oregon Ducks.
I think that's a phenomenal pick off the top of the dome. Um,
I do think he's the odds-on favorite, so it's kind of chalk, but I was
Dylan Gabriel's the pick
I
to
think
win.
I think so. I think. Odds might have changed since then, but I believe it's him. But DJ, give me your coach of the year. A lot of new coaches, new faces. Give me your coach of the year.
So again, off the dome type of pick, Kyle Whittingham. I think, I mean, if anybody watched the Big 12 podcast, I think Utah is going to come in and dominate the Big 12. I really don't know where the competition is going, right? I like the competition in
Yeah.
the Big 12 is gone with Texas and Oklahoma. You had mentioned Oklahoma State. Even I mentioned Kansas State as being competitors in this, but my expectation for Utah is to dominate. I think they have a favorable schedule with them, and they'll be a first time college football playoff, you know, maker, I guess, right? Um, but I think they're going to go one step further, right, which will inevitably give away one of my teams here. But I think they are going to get the bid or the first round bye in the playoffs. So I think Kyle Whittingham, among teams to make drastic improvements among the grand scope of college football, I think it's going to be Utah and Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah, I think this guy got snubbed last year for me for my pick for coach of the year. He took a team
Ooh,
that,
can I guess?
yeah, I think you know it.
It could be Steve Sarkisian.
No, it's not Steve.
Oh,
The team that was picked to be the bottom of the barrel in the conference took him to a
oh.
took him to a Cotton Bowl win against Ohio State, but he went up against the likes of Kalen DeBoer and Jim Harbaugh. I think one of them ended up with like coach of the year. I like Elijah Drinkwitz out of Missouri to be the coach of the year. I think if Mizzou does what they're supposed to, and they end up as a top 10 team with a home game going into the CFP and the first ever 12 team, I think that's a big win with Brady Cook, Theo Weiss, Luther Burton, right? Retools, he recruits out of his mind at a place where he's in one of the toughest conference now with Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, you name it, Florida. And what he's been able to do at Missouri is nothing short of remarkable, especially coming over from App State. I mean, he's my pick to be coach of the year. So I love Drinkwitz to be coach of the year.
I like that pick a lot. As much as I like to make fun of you for always bringing up the your Missouri Tigers, they did get snubbed from a lot of respect last year. No matter what type of Ohio State team they played in, it was the Cotton Bowl, right? They still battled it out against a bunch of good players on that Ohio State squad, and they really battled their way through the SEC. I mean, to make a New Year's Six game in the SEC with all the other teams that came out of it, I mean, uh, hats off to them, really.
Listen,
So,
they were right there last year against Georgia. And if it wasn't for a complete, utter second half collapse against LSU, we were right there against LSU. So, DJ, without any further dilly dallying, let's jump into the college football predictions here. Let's start. Should we go 1 through 12 or 12 through 1?
I think we have to start with our buys, our first round buys, and
Now,
then
now your first round buys are not all conference winners as well. You got to keep that in mind. It's the top 4 teams. When you win your conference, you get an auto bid in. You don't get the auto buy.
oh,
It is the top
insert mind blowing.
it's the top 4 teams.
Oh, good God.
DJ, let's go ahead. Let's just do it one by one here. Let's go with your number 1 team.
My number one team is going to be Ohio State.
Okay? I'm going to go with Georgia as my number 1 team.
All right. So, well, the way I had this written down was compared to my conference winners. Um, so I don't necessarily have an order ranked here.
Ohio
But
State
we
your Big
can we
10
can
winner?
we can. I'm sorry.
Is Ohio State your Big 10 winner?
Yes,
Got it. Tell
yes.
me, why do you think Ohio State's going to end up as the number 1 team in the country when they have never really proved it with Ryan Day yet?
Um, I know that it becomes cliche to say that uh that I really believe in Ohio State this year, right? I follow the college football pages from Ohio State to Florida, to Alabama, Ole Miss. I follow those pages. I see what they post. And they're not gonna bring down their team, right? Um, you get a lot of fan interference there, and you get hoaxed into believing stuff that's not always true, right? I think the ability to bring back the amount of players that they did speaks so much higher than what people understand. We saw this the last couple of years with Michigan, right? They are bringing back a squad, or they brought back a squad that, despite all the allegations, right, and them having an advantage, supposedly having an advantage, um, there is that squad still worked really well together. They molded into this brotherhood that I see Ohio State being this year. I mean, it's not every day that you have a top 3 defense and you have multiple first and second round picks and you get back 8 on defense, right? And then you bring in the arguably the number 1 person in the transfer portal in Caleb Downs. You don't have a problem at running back, yet you go get the best running back in the portal and you improve on a deficit that you had on your offensive line, and you go out and get Seth McLaughlin, who I've said before and I'll say again, had one bad game in Alabama. And people are crucifying him. So, and then the offensive side of the ball, the kid from Kansas State, Will Howard, is experienced, right? He beat that 2022 TCU squad in the conference championship game. He beat that team that went on to the college football playoff. He is experienced. He's a winner. He can throw the ball. And from what I understand, he lost like 30 pounds and gained a ton of muscle on in this offseason with Ohio State. So, excuse me. Um, so this Ohio State squad, it's really built to win. Like I don't have any doubts for them on the offensive side, right? With the quarterback Kyle McCord last year, there were doubts the whole entire season. I don't have a doubt about Will Howard in his ability to throw the ball and make the necessary throws, right? I know he can throw the ball, right? I've seen that in a different stage, but now he's got an elite level of everything. And this Ohio State just looks like the most complete squad, or arguably looks like the most complete squad in experience, in talent, and really, Ryan Day has been a couple plays away every year from a national title or a college football playoff experience. If they missed it, they were a play or two away there, or they were a play or two away from a national title game. And yes, did he make it? No. But you kind of have to look at the building blocks to a certain point and see where it fell off the tracks. Um, and so that's why I believe in Ohio State this year.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on Georgia. Carson Beck, Kirby Smart, defense, Travis Etienne at running back. Just kind of, they're the best team on paper. I think they're going to bounce back. I think Kirby's going to give them tons of rat poison and make them think they're the worst team on earth. But I like Georgia as the number one team to finish up in the country. Don't want to spend too much time,
So are
DJ.
they're your SEC winner then too,
They're
right?
my SEC winner. Yep. I don't want to
All
spend
right.
too much time going in depth on a ton of teams. Otherwise, it's going to be a 3.5 hour podcast because we got to get through the bracket. So, DJ, let's go with the rest of the buys. So, give me 2 through 4.
It really pains me. Like this whole thing has been so excruciatingly brutal. Like having to filter through the Big Ten and the SEC and thinking that the winners of those conferences were 1, 2, 3, and 4, those got the bye, really is messing me up in the head. Um, so good God. I think number 2 is Texas. Picking Texas as
SEC
number
winner.
2, SEC winner, Texas. And that could be a complete lie from what I told in the SEC podcast. I don't even remember. I don't even remember. Um, but I've got Texas as the number 2 team. Um, number 3 team, I'm gonna go Florida State. That's the number 3 team, winner of the ACC. Oh goodness gracious! And number 4, I think I've got to do it, and I'll have an explanation behind it too. But I'm gonna go Utah. I think Utah breezes through the Big 12, and I think they win their conference. I think they're a great pick to go undefeated this year. And so an undefeated Big 12 champion with I think some of the top teams knocking each other out. Why not? Really? I mean their schedule is going to be on the weaker side in comparison. Like Alabama losing one game to Georgia is not going to hold up well when Utah's undefeated, but I'm at a loss at the moment. I don't know. I don't know. It's a little whack at the moment here, Jacob. If you couldn't
Yeah,
tell.
I'm going to go. My number 2 team is the Oregon Ducks. They're going to be the Big Ten winner. I have Texas as my number 3 as an at large, and I have the Alabama Crimson Tide at number 4 as an at large. So as of right now, 1 through 4 are pretty chalk, but I just in my head with some of the losses that could happen in the season and some of the wins that these teams can get potentially, It's hard pressed to not look at the four of these teams and go, yeah, if they do what they're supposed to do on paper, and Alabama has one loss and its only loss is to Georgia. I mean, who's to argue against that, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and give you the rest of my home hosts. So that is 5 through 8.
Okay.
Right at number 5, I have Florida State, the ACC winner. I think they take care of business. They have a similar season to last year. I think Mike Norvell has his team cooking. I think DJ is going to do great things at the quarterback position. They have a great running back, great wide receivers, solid defense. ACC is not particularly strong. Ironically, Florida State is the only ACC team in my college football bracket. That means Clemson did not make it. I don't have them. I think they just are going to suffer a bad loss somewhere and they're not going to make it, which I think is completely in lieu of what I said in the ACC podcast. But this is a new week, a new day, a new night, a new level of delusional. This is how I'm going to go with it. Number 6, I have Ohio State as an at-large winner. Um, I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I think Will Howard helps them. I think they slay the beast and take down Michigan, right? For the first time in the Ryan Day era, I think. And no,
2019.
so he's 1-3, slay the beast. Again, no Harbaugh at Michigan. This is their opportunity. I think Oregon gives them a lot of trouble. But if they're one loss or two losses or is to Oregon and maybe another power ranked team, that's a great thing to have if you're Ohio State. You get to have your opponent come up to Columbus, to the big house. That's a home field advantage right there. At number 7, I love them. It is the Missouri Tigers at number 7 as an at-large. If they do what they are supposed to, and your only loss, I believe, is to Alabama this year, and you take care of business everywhere else you're supposed to, that's a great team. That is a very, very great season. That's a great thing to kind of go away with. That means you're taking down Oklahoma, right, at home, and you're taking down Texas A&M on the road, right? I think this puts Missouri in a great spot for not only their program, for the city of Columbia. That place is going to be rocking. I love what Drink is doing. Could be a complete egg on my face, but listen, I love the hype and I'm buying into it. I think they have a great chance to host. And when I give you the rest of these teams, they're not better than the Missouri Tigers. They're just not. Number 8, the final bit of my home slate. I said it in the Big 12 podcast. Kansas State is the Big 12 winner. They're going to claim the number 8 spot in my college football bracket. DJ, give me your 5 through 8.
All right. At number 5, I have the Missouri Tigers. I have them being the SEC runner-up this year. Oh, I know, bold, right? The SEC is really messing with my brain this year. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that have a lot of talent, and you'll see why my head is spinning here in a moment. But number 6, I've got the Oregon Ducks. They are my runner-up in the Big Ten. I mean, Dan Lanning is just he's a beast over there, man. It wouldn't surprise me, really wouldn't, if they came up top in the Big Ten. Um, Again, I just like the the overall team of Ohio State better than Oregon at the moment. Oregon bringing in transfers. I think there's going to be some sort of uh, I don't know. I don't know. I just like the squad better. I'm really messed up in the brain right now. At number 7, I've got the Ole Miss Rebels. I have them coming in third in the SEC, I believe. Um, like I said, I'm having a little bit of trouble here after knowing that the Big 12 or the conference winners aren't buys. So I'm trying to kind of going off on the fly right now. But I've got Ole Miss at 7, and then I just as you made your last pick I flipped them out. So I will actually go into my 8 and then 9 as they play each other. But my number 8 is going to be Georgia, right? Georgia's going to be the fourth and final SEC team to make the college football playoff at an at large. And my number 9 is going to be Kansas State. I don't
Your number,
believe.
you mean your number 8?
Nope. Georgia was my number 8.
So who is uh so give me the
Missouri, Oregon, Ole Miss, Georgia.
Missouri, Ole Miss.
Missouri, Oregon, Ole Miss, Georgia. And I swapped Kansas State and Georgia just because I don't think the committee would rather have Georgia host over Kansas State. And that is really the only reason why I believe it. I don't think that they would rank SEC back to back otherwise if it wasn't Georgia as big of a team. But that's who I'm flipping around. And then
Yeah, go
so
ahead and
this is where
complete your
go
9
ahead,
through 12.
complete my 9 through 12. So this is where I get really confused again in the head. Um oh, goodness gracious. I think at 10, I'm tossed between two teams right here. I'm going to go ahead and say that Clemson is going to be the number 10 team in the nation. Um, excuse me. Uh, no, cancel that. Number 10 is going to be Penn State. Number 11 is going to be Clemson, and number 12 is going to be Liberty.
Love it. Love it. My 9 through 12, I got Notre Dame sneaking in at 9.
What about them?
I think Notre Dame's just going to do enough. I think they're going to do enough. I think Marcus Freeman has enough talent to get that team through, right? I think they have, they're going to have some signature wins on that resume. That's going to be hard pressed to kind of go against, or a preseason number 7. I mean, you open the season up at A&M, right? You get a Louisville team that could potentially be ranked. You get Florida State at home, and then you got to go to USC. I mean, those are some teams right there that if you go and you beat, let's say you beat USC, you beat A&M, and you battle against Florida State and lose by a field goal, that's hard pressed for me to not put them in, right? So I got Notre Dame as an at large. At number 10, I think we're both really digging Utah and what the Big 12 weakness is going to offer to this team, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
Utah and Kansas State are ample 1-2s. I think they're going to be the two teams out of the Big 12. So I like Utah at number 10. At number 11, I had such a toss up between the next three teams that were in my head. I was a toss up between Ole Miss, Michigan, and Penn State, right? And for me, I was looking at it more and more, and I was just thinking, like, there's no way that like some one of these teams, they're gonna be hard pressed and they're gonna be upset that they didn't get in, right? And for me, the more I kept looking at it, the more I trust where this team is going. Now, this is pre any like bans that come from the NCAA. And I like Michigan in the 11th spot because historically, Lane Kiffin and James Franklin just haven't been able to get it done. So what tells me they're going to get it done now? Nothing. Especially where we're taking in consideration that the Big 12 is going to get 2 teams and there's a group of 5 in the mix, and the SEC is going to be so strong, right? Because to you, you have 1, 2, 3, 4,
Or SEC teams.
4 SEC teams, right? And then, like, to me, I don't know. The more I look at it, I just think Michigan can't have that far of a drop off in talent and in coaching, right?
Brother, we just went over that they lost 18 people.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I
I mean,
like
if Ole Miss repeats what they did last year, right, in any similar fashion, the only team that they're going to lose to is Georgia.
well, here's the thing. The way I'm looking at the Ole Miss schedule, I see two losses on there at least with a potential third. Is the way I view it. I see a
I see
couple trap games.
one, maybe two
I see the loss to Georgia. I see a potential loss to LSU because it's at
at
LSU,
LSU. Yeah, I can get behind that.
right?
And
And
then you're
then
going to tell me Oklahoma?
no, I think between Oklahoma, Florida, and Kentucky, one of them upsets Ole Miss, and that knocks them out.
All right,
And
suit
I think
yourself.
I just think it's Michigan sliding into that final spot. And then, like I just said, my group of five team is the UTSA Roadrunners at 12. So, DJ, I'm gonna give you my quick speed runs here. Between Florida State, UTSA, Florida State wins. They move on to play Alabama for me. Oregon State, Michigan. No, Oregon State, Ohio State, Michigan. Ohio State claims another win, and they're gonna move on to face Texas. I have Missouri taking down Utah in what will be a battle. That will be a phenomenal game if we get that game. They're going to go on and play Oregon. And Notre Dame pulls off the first road upset, taking down Kansas State. And they're going to go on and play Georgia.
Got your first round?
That's my first round. I want you to get your first round in before I continue on to my final four.
Okay, okay. Oh, who did I have at three? I have Florida State at three.
Yep.
All right. Sorry, I'm just making my little ghetto bracket over here. Real quick. Um, so I believe my first round is Missouri Liberty 5 versus 12. I am going to pick Missouri to have their first college football playoff win. Oregon Clemson at 6 versus 11 intrigues me a lot, right? I think that is going to be a color rush, freaking fantastic game in color to watch. But I'm going to pick Oregon to win over Clemson. Penn State, Ole Miss, another intriguing game because that was last year's um something bowl.
Which one?
Penn State, Ole Miss is a
That
repeat
was
of last year's
The Peach Bowl.
the Peach Bowl last year. Yes. Um, I funny enough that these are two teams that they can't win the big game. I think Ole Miss is going to win the big game. Um, and I think they move past Penn State, and I also believe that Georgia moves past Kansas State in the first round.
Love it. So, DJ, so the matchups I have Florida State versus Bama. I'm going to take the Florida State Seminoles to upset Bama to move on. I have Ohio
Okay.
State, Texas. I think Ohio State upsets Texas to move on. Missouri, Oregon, the Missouri hype train, unfortunately, is going to come to an end. The Oregon Ducks move on, and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the luck runs out. The Georgia Bulldogs take them down. So then we're looking at Florida State versus Georgia and Ohio State and Oregon as my final four teams so far.
All right. Who were your winners there? Who moved on?
Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon.
Ooh, nice. All right. So I think that's funny enough. Because I'm really going off of first glance, right? And I'm just picking the team there. Because if I have to think about it too long, I'm gonna want. I like the matchup, and
Yeah.
I'm looking to the next round. So I've got Ohio State, Missouri. Unfortunately for you, Jacob, that is going to be where Missouri's train ends. I'm going to go Ohio State over Missouri. Um, and then Texas, Oregon. I think another just stellar battle there, right? Gut wants the matchup to be Ohio State, Oregon, right? Excuse me. No, the gut tells me I want Ohio State, Texas to be in there again. But I think Oregon, again, in my initial my not thinking too much about it, I'm picking Oregon. I'm picking Oregon over Texas.
DJ,
Um,
I gotta tell you right now, you got the matchups wrong.
I got the matchups wrong.
Missouri would not play Ohio State if they won. The one would play the 8 versus the 9 winner.
All right, so one. All right, 1 versus 8 and 9. All right, 5 versus 12 plays who?
The 4. 6 versus
The
3. The
4,
6 versus 11 plays the 3.
the
The
3.
7v10 plays the 2.
All right, so fancy enough that this happens like it does. So 5 versus 12 matchup goes to okay. 5 versus 12 plays number 4. All right. So Missouri Liberty. I've got Missouri moving on. Missouri would then play. Missouri would then go against Utah. Correct.
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick Missouri over Utah. So Missouri's end, shockingly enough, does not end. Missouri's run does not end right there at Ohio State. It continues over Utah, right? Ole Miss, Penn State. I picked Ole Miss. Then they would play Texas. I'm going to pick Texas over Ole Miss.
There you go.
Then I've got Oregon and Clemson. I picked Oregon. Oregon would then go to play Florida State. Another intriguing matchup. I'm still going to go Oregon over Florida State. And then Kansas State, Georgia, going Georgia. Georgia plays Ohio State. I'm going to go Ohio State. So I still pick Ohio State to move. Missouri
Who's your
now moves on.
who's your final 4 teams?
So let's be Ohio State. The Ohio State.
You
I'm
said
sorry, I had
Missouri,
Missouri, Ms.
Florida State,
Florida. No,
Oregon,
Oregon,
and
and
then
then
Texas.
Texas. That would be correct.
Woo! Listen, I got my final 4. Florida State's going up against Georgia. I'm taking the Georgia Bulldogs. Just they're just that much better than Florida State. Ohio State, Oregon, this is going to be a barn burner. I love this matchup if it gets to this point in the season. I think Dan Lanning slays the beast and puts Oregon on the map with Dylan Gabriel. I got Georgia versus Oregon in the national title game. Who's in your
So you
national?
have who were your losers again?
Florida State and Ohio State lose.
Florida State against who? Georgia, and then Oregon goes past Ohio State again.
Yep.
Interesting. All right, you're gonna have to give me my final 4 matchups because I'm at this point I'm lost.
So you had Missouri, Ohio
I
State.
know who my 4 are. I just don't know who's competing.
Missouri's against Ohio State. And then it's, yeah,
Or
the other two play each other.
Oregon and Texas. All right. So interesting enough, it just comes all the way back around, right? Ohio State, Missouri. I think Missouri's run ends. So unfortunately, it happens. So I pick Ohio State, and I'm going to stick with my initial feeling again, and I think Oregon beats Texas. And I think you have an Ohio State Oregon matchup in the championship game. And like you, I'm going to pick my winner of the previous battle, and I'm going to go Ohio State over Oregon in the national title game. Repeat of the first national title game in 2014, 10 years later, 11 years later. And Ohio State will be your 2024 college football season.
I thought the first one was Florida
National.
State, Oregon.
No.
No. Anyways, my national title, I have Georgia versus Oregon. And I just think the Georgia Bulldogs return back to glory, back to prominence. Carson Beck, Travis Etienne. Kirby Smart. We've talked about it in the SEC. If you've been listening to the podcast, I don't need to explain it to you again. I think the Georgia Bulldogs are one of the best teams in college currently. So, DJ, those are our predictions. We kind of wrapped everything up in a nice little bow. Um, Again, we're gonna be having an
This
all NFL.
conversation, I think, needs to happen every week
I mean, it's gonna have
after
to.
the season starts. Like this is gonna need a needed updated. As you can see, I was confused. Your viewers out there, I'm sorry if you get through this podcast and don't just swipe out of
We
it.
never said we were experts. We're small. We're like some percent idiot here. But
Self proclaimed
yeah.
experts.
Um, Again, to the dealers out there, this completes our college football kind of preview for the 2025-24-25 season. Next up, we were trying to do the divisions for the NFL. I don't think we're going to have that much time to get there. Potentially, who knows? We could be ripping out podcasts all this week. We don't know yet. But for those that are anticipating an NFL, expect a division winners, preseason awards, preseason playoff predictions, and our preseason Super Bowl matchups in the week of the first NFL game before
Yep.
that
So
Thursday night
before
football game.
September 5th.
Yep, for
So
September
let
5th.
it. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
DJ, we have college football starting, and it's so great, so wonderful.
I Jacob, I want viewer feedback is what I want. That's what I really want right now. I want to get roasted for my not necessarily my lack of knowledge of all of this, because in all retrospect, I should have been more aware. But on the fly, I kind of like the matchups. Maybe they're not like realistic in the order that they come in, but I think I picked some pretty good games, right? And where they happen. I think the we have seen some development in how the playoff committee could be a little bit biased, right? So, like, inherently, I flipped my 8 and 9 because I don't think Kansas State is going to host a home game over Georgia, right? But I still like the matchup there.
Yeah,
Penn State, Ole Miss, I think is realistic. I think Oregon, Clemson is realistic, and Missouri Liberty. I think those are good matchups. And I mean, when I first wrote this, I thought again, division winners we're going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 because that low key makes sense to me. But without finding that out, I don't think it's horrible, and I just like to see what people think. What do people think of the matchups? What do you think people think of uh you know the rankings that I put up on the fly? So
I love
engage
it.
with us, dealers,
Love it.
please.
I love
You
it.
deal with us, we can deal with the comments. So
Awesome. Well, DJ, this completes our college football preview. We'll be giving our kind of, game week predictions more on the TikTok side of things, potentially Instagram Reels. This is more a little bit of a recap. We give you our favorite game starting week 2, not week 1, just because there's not a whole lot of games that we're kind of excited by in week 1. But yeah, DJ, any other comments?
nope, I'm
Well,
excited for this. I'm excited for this year.
like,
I guess
comment,
that is a yes. I do have a comment. It's going to be a great year, Jacob.
share, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Give us a comment, interact with us. We're going to be there interacting with you. This has been the deal with D and J. He has been DJ McCatherine. I have been your co-host, Jacob Pro. Thanks for listening.